Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, members of the House, members in the gallery, it's always a pleasure to stand in this house. I always stand on the strength of the good voters, the district of Scarborough Mount Grace, who, by their vote, allows me to be here. The budget statement was premised, among other things, on two fundamentals. One, that the resources that rightfully belong to Tobago are not calculated in the revenue for Tobago. And two, that the premise of the DRC commission that hinged the bottom figure of the range for which Tobago should be budgeted within was based on the population size. And we have sat in this house, this is the third time, where we have attempted to come up with a budget that those people in the parliament in Trinidad can approve in full. We started out with requesting closer to the upper limit of the range, 6.9%. And both times, the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, who is Tobagonian, refused. So we are here again, doing what we can do to appease our masters, because they are in fact our masters. To appease them, to say to them, listen, we are doing the reasonable thing. The member for Roxborough, let me deal with him first. The member for Roxborough, I believe he wants to apologize. I believe his impending bankruptcy is finally getting to him, and he needs an increase in salary. And therefore,
Member, I caution you about your motives.
And therefore, he wishes to be on the side that he criticizes. But in his absence, I want to say to him that apart from nations in the Middle East, every nation in the West, and maybe China, every nation in the West runs on a deficit budget, including Trinidad and Tobago. In the region, the Tobago House of Assembly, and I keep making the point before that we don't realize that we have a Barbados House of Assembly and a St. Vincent House of Assembly and a Grenada House of Assembly, which forms the government of those countries. The government of Tobago, therefore, is probably the only government in the region that cannot borrow, that cannot budget effectively, that needs to ask some other public servant in Trinidad permission to spend, to ask them, can it, till we are at the place where our forefathers fought for some level of autonomy, some level of internal self-government, where we are given a budget and we are given responsibilities under the 5th schedule. And we hear both PNM and PDP saying, coming to the House and saying, let's give up the rights that we have fought for so hard that Robinson almost get killed for in the parliament. And they come to this house to say, let the people in Trinidad starve us for budget so they could build infrastructure works in Tobago. And I mean, how do you, as a Tobagonian, come to the house of the seat of government in Tobago and argue that the government in Trinidad must have the right to deny us our budgetary requests, and then to turn around and say to you, sit in your corner I will do this for you and we will accept it because you must kneel to me. And it is amazing that remember my good cousin from Roxborough, Argyle, can come to this house today and argue for that. Now listen to the member for Darrell Spring Wim. This gentleman continuously in the house, on the television, repeat lie after lie after lie in the hope that one day somebody will believe the lie.
Yes.
So I want to change up my entire speech because I plan to start with quoting Section 43 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, where the Parliament in Trinidad and Tobago admits to the people of Trinidad and Tobago that the government, the cabinet of the day, must give due consideration in considering the budget estimates, must give due consideration to the financial and developmental needs of Tobago. Not to the size of the request, but must give consideration to the financial and developmental needs of Tobago in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, and shall allocate resources to Tobago as fairly as is practicable. Fairly subjective, and so we'll get to that part. Because they admit that they centralized into Trinidad the center of commerce for 135 years. They admit in 1996 that is what they did, and therefore they must now pay us for physical separation from Trinidad. That's what they admit. They admit that Tobago is outside of the principal growth centers, meaning that they have built no structures, physical or economic structures, to allow Tobago to grow. And they must now pay us for that. This is after. They admit also that the absence of the expenditure that takes place in Trinidad, which they orchestrate for 135 years. You know, we had our ancestor, APT, having to fly to England in the 50s to get a road in Mount Thomas and street lights and books for school when they had a government in Trinidad. Because the government in Trinidad under Hochoy and then under Eric refused to spend money in Tobago.
Which Hochoy? Solomon.
Solomon Hochoy. They admit in 1996 that they had restricted opportunities for employment and career fulfillment. 70% of my family reside in Trinidad because of that fact. And they come to the house to see, and this gentleman from Roxborough, this member from Roxborough, comes to the house to say that Trinidad and Tobago should not pay because in his mind, we have misspent, bad spent, or cannot spend. But the people in Trinidad can spend, and they can go back mid-year and ask for another spend and get it through the Parliament when they can't even account for $2 to $3 billion. And the member for Argyle agrees, and the member for Wim agrees. But we think so lowly of ourselves that we are willing to. I watched a movie, I don't remember the name, it's Samuel Jackson and Jamie Foxx, a Western movie. I think Samuel Jackson was the real house slave in the movie. Django. And that is what they remind me of. Massa, come build the road for me. Today, after in 2022, we wrote to the NITCO, we wrote to the Ministry of Finance saying, let us have a conversation, according to the THA Act, let us have a conversation on how we can participate, give our input into the construction of the new terminal. They keep calling it the new airport. It's just a new terminal they're building, you know. New terminal and new apron, that's what they're doing. New terminal and new apron for $1 billion+. That's all they're doing. And they refuse to meet with the THA. They refuse to meet. We had to go through all kind of rigmarole just to get the plans. They find gas. They say it's methane. Who in Tobago knows what kind of gas they find? 95 feet, digging a shallow trench to put pipelines, fuel lines, which should be 9 or 10 feet, but they end up 95 feet to say they find methane gas. Maybe the member from Darrell Spring Wim has the report, because I ain't get it. The chief second get it. Nobody in Tobago get it. the same Indian man that who the same one? Disrespectful. They operating in this land with impunity because they, by some law from the English, control what goes on in Tobago. And we, whose fathers work in the cane fields and the plantations in Tobago, are left homeless. That's what we are, homeless. And want to come to this house to say that, listen, let Trinidad build the road. This guy, what he's been saying for years, he's been saying that. Let Trinidad build the road and making noise about a 2-lane dual carriageway and saying, this will never get it in Tobago. And the next one saying, well, the economic appraisal for that. What is the sense? And I don't want to criticize other people's plans, but what is the sense in building a dual carriageway from Canaan to Cove? What is the sense of that? Canaan to Cove, and then end up back on a single carriageway. What is the sense of that? We looked at some of the plans, we decided what we were going to do. The dual carriageway plan, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, $144 million. That's what they said they were going to do. We are spending much less than that. But it is not good enough because the plebs and the commoners in Tobago must bow to the PNM in Trinidad and say, come and build it. If what the chief said, they are traitors to Tobago. They're not Tobagonians in any way. They are traitors and haters of themselves. So the budget statement was premised on two fundamental things among others. The other one, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, was population size. It's not my argument, it's the population size being the basis of the argument that Dr. Vanush James and others put forward to the DRC back in '96. We are saying no, that the population has grown, and the population in Tobago has taken, the last census I remember, other than 2011, was 1980. 1980, the population of Tobago was 50,000 people. From 1980 to now, 45 years, the population has now gotten, if we have to believe the member for Darrell Spring, to 60,000.
Misquoted figures.
But
Misquoted.
that's what he said. He does his research. So he come up with the 60,000. So let me use this figure, right? Because the CSO can't disaggregate nothing. Nobody in this country in Trinidad, not banks, not energy sector companies, could disaggregate anything between Tobago and Trinidad. Not CSO, nobody. Because the PNM wanted so. But this population thing has always been a concern for me. Like I said, 60% of my family in Trinidad, where their taxes are accounted for, in Tobago or Trinidad. Where does the Prime Minister, where does his taxes are accounted for? When he pays his taxes, where are they accounted for? Tobago or Trinidad? And he salary tax, right? So the economic impact of the Tobagonian has been migrated to Trinidad, and now Trinidad takes benefit of our economic activity because they admitted that we've had restricted opportunities for employment and career fulfillment. The Prime Minister might have been Chief Secretary now if he stayed today, who knows?
Never did.
Who knows? But the career fulfillment pathway, nobody tried to do anything, man. The career fulfillment pathway took him to Port of Spain, and now his taxes, his expenditure is being accounted for as part of the GDP of Trinidad. Now tell me, where does that make sense in a so-called unitary state? And so half of our income, half of our revenue is being counted in Trinidad. And we are powerless, we have no way of deciding what it is because the government refuses to disaggregate any accounting in Trinidad and Tobago. The chief talked about the energy reserves and linked the budget on the definition of Tobago and Trinidad. That is important, that is of critical importance. Now listen to Mr. Duke, that is of critical importance because he probably doesn't understand. To be a multi-state unitary state means that every state in the unitary state is a state. Every component of the unitary state is a state. So Tobago is a state. The only way Tobago and Trinidad could be one state is if Tobago is a state and Trinidad is a state, or else Tobago is one of the archipelagic islands of Trinidad, and we know that is not the case, right? So Tobago is already a state, and Trinidad is a state, and the UN laws of the sea says that coastal states are surrounded by an economic zone. Correct. That extends 200 miles, and if another country is within your 200-mile radius, it extends to the middle line between those two. Yeah. That's just simple. I don't believe that. And therefore, delineating Tobago and Trinidad again is simple. But the PNM refuses to do it because they want to call all the waters around Tobago. No, they're calling it Trinidad. I'll tell you what they're calling it. Northeast Marine Area. Yeah. That's what it is. North Coast, sorry. North Coast Marine Area. Energy deposits in the Tobago Trough, northeast of Tobago. Between Tobago and Grenada, off Castara, Palatavere, and Lansformy. Block 22 on the energy map, off Charlottesville, is the North Coast Marine Area of Trinidad. So they can now have Shell run a pipeline from Iris and from Orchid to the platform in Poinsettia and take that gas and never come for it to Tobago because that is theirs. That is part of their GDP. The Iris and Orchid are 11 miles off Castara. And so when Prime Minister Passad was offering 11 miles, they jumped down all over Trinidad and said, no, you can't do that, leave them at 6.
Because they know.
That is them.
They knew.
And they come with support of the PDP to say, give them no more money. Give them no more money. And so, I want to tell Tobagonians, especially the young, there were some young people there this morning. I think the member said that it was his godson. Came to hear him speak and then left. I want to tell the young people, those in Standard 5 and in Forms 4 and 5 and 6, and some of the teachers, that if we don't teach these kids the truth of what this relationship is, we are going to be lost forever to Trinidad. If we don't do it. In the United Kingdom, which is probably one of the oldest concepts of unitary statehood, one of the oldest concepts, who Eric modeled this thing after. Scotland controls the oil deposits, the energy deposit in the North Sea. And it's accounted for as part of their GDP, and a portion of it goes to the national so-called UK Parliament. Belongs to Scotland. In Tobago, nothing belongs to Tobago, not even we. Everybody buy a new car now except me. When the member for Lambo, Lowlands buy a new car. But he ain't paying taxes on that. That's a bad example. When the ordinary citizen in Tobago buy a car and pays the 35% duty on it, all of that is calculated as a Trinidad income. All of that. When we buy food and we import grape and apple, and we must ban that just now. All of that taxes is counted for in Trinidad because, again, we can't separate it. Insurance. Everything. And we sit here and repeat the words of the Prime Minister. $200 million in revenue. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let me get to, before my time runs out, let me get to the details of the budget by just stating some of the facts. I know the member want to talk about the road and all of them things, and how James so corrupt, and the member for Palatavere so corrupt, and all the 700 million that they spend and give to whomever who the auditors say value only 400 million, they take the 7 and give it to their friends. They can't talk about that. But I don't have time. Public sector investment program. Trinidad and Tobago. In 2022-23, under the item called Improving Productivity Through Quality Infrastructure and Transportation, that's where it is. That's the development budget for Tobago and Trinidad. And before we came into office, Tobago, I am told, never submitted a project to the PSIP in the format it should be submitted in. We did it this year for the first time, and I applaud the staff at the division who worked tirelessly in a short period of time to try to do it under the guidance of the administrator who is here today. For the first time in 20 years, no division in Tobago submitted a project in the format they should submit it to the PSIP, to be part of the PSIP program in Trinidad and Tobago. And they come here to talk about governance and about budget. Anyhow, the central government in Trinidad, 3 items under the Ministry of Works and Transportation. Drainage, 2023, $298 million. Roads and bridges, $995 million. This is the development budget. Only the development budget. And let me keep in mind that in Tobago, certainly in the division of infrastructure, the development budget comprises $41.6 million as wages that we inherit because they failed to do what they should do and cut short the development program every year. And so everybody knows that work in development are in fact recurrent expenditure. So the recurrent expenditure component of the development budget at the division of infrastructure is $41.6 million per year. Keep that in mind. Under these 3 items, drainage, roads and bridges and transportation, the Ministry of Works and Transportation received $1.68.5 billion in 22-23, and in 23-24, $1.402 billion. In Tobago, the development program for the Division of Infrastructure received under the same items, aggregated 2022 to 2023, $61 billion, $61 million. And in 23-24, $44.9 million. You take away the recurrent wages from that, and Tobago received $19.4 million to carry out development works under drainage, roads and bridges, and transportation. Transportation here means carriageway and roads and so on. $19.4 million to buy material and do development work and hand out projects and do whatever we have to do. And in 23-24, $3.3 million, which works out at a percentage of between the Division of Infrastructure
Member for
and the
Scarborough
Ministry of
Mongrace.
Works and Transportation. It works out to a percentage of that.
Member for Scarborough Mongrace, you have 2 minutes of speaking time remaining.
Which, thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. Which works out to, in 22-23, 1.1% of the money given to the Ministry of Works to build out infrastructure in Trinidad. I mean, how could anybody in Tobago stand in this house and say, not another cent? How could anybody in Tobago say that this is fair and this is right and this is just? How could the members for Tobago East and the member for Tobago West be silent in the House in Trinidad on Tobago issues? How could a Prime Minister who born in Mason Hall be silent? How? So this year, we're asking for only $138 million under these same headings. $138 million, and we submitted to the PSI, in the format of the PSIP, projects for Bad Rock, Turpin Bend, Runnymede, Easterfield, Cove Roundabout, secondary roads program, and of course upgrade to the Claudenwell Highway. We in Tobago need more than ever to come to terms with the fact that we need a different arrangement, a different funding arrangement, a different legislative arrangement with the state of Trinidad. The state of Tobago needs a different arrangement, otherwise we will be stuck. My kids, my father went through this problem, I went through it, my children are going to go through it if they come back here to live, and all of us, generation after generation after generation, will be going through it because we have people in Tobago who support a Trinidad ideal over a Tobago one.
Member, your speaking time has expired.
Deputy Presiding Officer, I move that the member for Scarborough, Congress, be given an additional 10 minutes to complete his term.
Honorable members, the question is that an additional 10 minutes of speaking time be allowed to the member for Scarborough Congress to finish his presentation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. Proceed.
Thank you, members. So let me respond to a little bit of some of the things that the member for Darrell Springwim spoke about. CAF, Central American Development Bank, he said that the division had designs in place for coastal protection. Outright lie. If they have it, it on the computer of Mr. Chadban and he won with it. They don't make the division. We've sat with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Housing, I think, who is the executing agent for them, for this loan, where they sat with the previous administration and promised them $15 million US. Identify the 3 projects. The project at Grange Bay, where if you get up, before you get up to Mount Irving Hotel turnoff, the failure there is maybe 10-15 feet from the road now. For revetment protection there along the seawall. No design. All lie and fake news. Plymouth Back Bay. No design. That road has eroded completely from the seaside to the inner side. Eh?
The chief of the expert players on them.
If what?
The chief of the expert players on them.
They started a wall down there. I know how much it cost. The road has eroded and failed completely. The house on the eastern side of the road, cracking up, nobody can live in it. Pigeon Point, the ups and build a breakwater, a nearshore breakwater off Basso restaurant, where Basso renting from Pigeon Point down there, to somehow protect him. No design, no study, no EMA approval, nothing. Them is PNM. They could just do what they want. Just do what they want. Start a cretin where you shouldn't have cret. Basso still getting flood out. Decide now that let me go fix that. Government agree. The 3 projects identified, 2.5 years, $0. CAF came to Tobago to discuss with us in person. $0. IDB, again, Saturday agreed with the previous administration, $41 million for road infrastructure in town, some money for the project in Riseland, a housing project, and upgrades to the botanics gardens. $41 million. With instructions from the Tobagonian in Parliament, $0. My good friend spoke about the quarry already. Turpin Bend, one of the things he spoke about. How we now going to do it. Well, we know that the Unicot was hired by the division, and when we win, the Unicot get instructions to stop all project work in Tobago.
Including Baccalaureate complex.
The Unicot get instructions from the Prime Minister after the Prime Minister tell them, here now, I am a geologist, my head hard, I know a rock. Let's not go down that hill. Let's go behind Pat Turpin house and go down in the back. Otherwise he can't approve it. After he tell him that, and Garcia agreed, Garcia came to us in the Executive Council and agreed that that's what the Prime Minister tell him, and he agreed we should go there and it will cost us some of them $2 million or whatever extra. And then a week later they write a letter to say they're done with that. No more project in Tobago. And so we now have to find the money through some means, through some procurement modality we would find to pay later, to build that road, to prevent people who run off the road with buses for years, 23 years, 21 years they paying them there, can't fix the road, and then want to come and blame us for 2 years for delays caused by your Unicot. The thing is so preposterous that I could only smile, and Brother Watson want me to smile. Tender process. The next thing the member for WIM, Darrell Spring talk about, how tender process was expedited and some contractor win. Well, I want to say that at least we have a tender process. At least we have a tender process. We have a tender process for the same road that on the books are the estimates that went to the Executive Council last THA for $40 million to build the same road that we built for $19.5 million. And we had a tender process for it, and yet still they make noise. It is like if they're so against any development in Tobago, yes, and like the roundabout kind of hurting the head that it come out there, they go like they're going crazy. They go any development in Tobago, they're against it. Yes. Don't do nothing. Because we didn't do nothing, and we have instructions not to do anything, so you don't come and do nothing. How do we not say that you are against Tobago? Because all the data, what did I say? All the data, when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, all the data says that the PNM has been against Tobago development and continues to be against Tobago development, and therefore they want to sell this story that if every time you spend any money on real development, because you know all the $700 million they do in Tobago and spend money on is not development. It is fixing a piece of road here and a piece of road there and a drain here and a drain there and making the life of Tobagonians better. But it is not economic development or infrastructural development, because it brings no economic return. It doesn't allow for the movement, the ease of movement from the airport to the seaport, and reduce the cost of transportation if you want to export something. That's what the road in Friendship does. Today, the PS from Works calling my PS, I don't call him PS now because he's doing more work than she for half the money. And nobody's saying nothing. The most of the divisions in Tobago, the administrators doing more work than the joking ministries they have in Trinidad. And have PS and deputy PS, and we have to subordinate ourselves to deputy PS and then try to get promotion down there. She calling to say, you know, let me talk about the road. You know, let me talk now. Let me don't go through them politicians. Let me see if you could talk.
Member for Scarborough, Mongrace, you have 1 minute of speaking time remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. So then in conclusion, let me say that to the young people in the 5th forms and the 6th forms and the people in Tobago generally, that you have to understand that we are positioning Tobago to be able to spring off, and we have to go quickly with some of the development projects because we have been stagnant for too long, and we have been put a plethora of stumbling blocks in our way, and we have to hop, skip, and jump to get through. So on that note, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I thank you.